Go.
All right, well, I'm calling the meeting. I'm calling the meeting of the Partnership Finance and Growth Committee to order on September 20th, 2023. And we have 4 people who are members of the committee plus Cynthia Van Zyl. So we have me, Mario, Steve Farino, and Brian Nailsworth. So I don't have the agenda in front of me, Cynthia. I think the next thing would be, is there an approval of the minutes? Then I'll get it. What is next on the agenda?
It is the approval of the minutes.
So at this time, I would make a motion to approve the Finance and Growth Committee minutes from May 17th.
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Any corrections or objections or anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I hear from Stephen, so we're okay. All right, Cynthia, what's next? I think it's you probably.
What's the June 30th financials, which I'm gonna try to, I can save on my desktop and
Share with us.
share. Yeah. Just give me a second, please.
You don't know offhand the date of when you sent this out, do you?
I just had it up. Just let me. Sorry, I'm trying to do.
Looks like it was last Thursday,
got it.
Tony.
I got it.
Thank you, Ryan.
I got it.
Appreciate it.
I have three devices. 2 of them get town email. The third, on which I can see things, doesn't. So I did skip public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the committee from the public or any communications that we've received?
No public comment received.
All right, I'll close the public comment then. All right, so review of the financials.
Yes, and Shamim has joined us.
Yes. Hey, Shamim. I will point out that as we have been talking about salary schedules, it really is important to remember that we used up all of the money in our budget this year on existing salaries, and I'm really quite concerned about what consequences there are for the budget with increasing salaries. Unless we can find an additional source of revenue, I don't see where the money is going to come from. So we do have an increase in revenue.
You want me to go through this, Tony, and hit the high
Yes,
points? And
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm gonna just go to a couple of sheets here. Kind of, this is the summary that Amanda and her team put together for us. So I'm going to go to page 3, which is the statement of revenues and expenditures. So good news that we are 31,000, almost 32,000 over to the good over our budget. So that's largely due to being without an event coordinator for probably 2 months. And then when Josh left, we also didn't have our admin. Rosemary Watson joined last week, so we are fully staffed right now, which is always good. So so that brought our fund balance to 387,445. So we again.
Can you increase the size on this? I can barely read the numbers.
I don't know if I can. This is a PDF. I mean,
Well,
unless Ryan or somebody shows me how to do this.
I think
You
you
should
can
be able to
do,
zoom on a PDF. Let's see. So
go to the bottom of the screen.
yeah, I mean, if you hit do you have a wheel on your mouse? If you
Yeah,
Oh,
hold
look, there's a-
control and do the wheel, it should zoom.
There we go. And there's also a little magnifying glass.
is that worse or better?
That's
Better
better.
there.
Okay.
That right margin with the little arrow, you could click on that in the middle, right margin, bar, black arrow.
In the middle of the screen.
Yeah, to the
Here?
right
No, to
margin.
the right.
Yeah, right
Here?
margin. So that'll
going.
expand the entire sheet and lose that whole
Oh yeah.
row.
So, I'm sorry, what do you want me to do?
There's like a little arrow to the right of the scroll bar, so you can get rid of where it says comment, fill, and sign.
Okay, I'm sorry,
No, it's all right. It's like,
I'm not sure how to get rid
You
of
just
that.
go mid-screen on that mid
Drop your,
bar in there.
drop your arrow, you see the blue line on the right?
Keep going down. Now
Yep.
go right,
Yep.
right.
Right, right,
hard
right
to
there
see.
you go. Bravo.
Got it.
Just so you guys know, and a lot of you do know, I know we're recording, I am a morning person. We're heading toward my end of the day. So I apologize.
That was test one. Very good.
That was too many tests, too many.
So Cynthia, is
Okay.
this extra $30,000 going to be available to us for if salary increases next year, for example?
Well, I think that's a discussion that the committee needs to have. So there's a couple of ways to approach this. I mean, generally, my recommendation has been that fund balance is for specific projects like our strategic
Right.
plan. There's the option to increase the amount from Yukon in the town again to balance our budget. And there's probably other options too. So, I mean, your point is a good one. I just, I would caution that we sort of jump to the fact that, supporting our staff here, that we can't do this because
No.
I guess I think we just have to delve into it, and we'll be in that process in about 2 months. So,
Yeah, and what we've been hearing from Kyle is he's had to defend the budget to the budget cutters at the university. So once again, just a little alarmed about asking for more money.
yeah, I think there's some, new folks, and so there has to be further explanation that he's been able to provide with support of people that have been around for a long time. So, you want me to keep going?
Yes,
Okay.
please. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's okay, except now I've got to. Okay. All right, so this is our Fund 270, so where most of our events are located. Just this figure is incorrect where it says Patterson Square events. So this was miscoded. So this $395 deficit is incorrect. That's actually was money spent on the summer concert. So I'm working with finance on having that corrected. So that'll be corrected by the September financials.
So let me ask a question.
Mhm.
Your expenditure budget is 3650. The balance on last July was 47. $60 was taken in and 502 was spent. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. So that's where
So you should be
this-
we should be subtracting 502 from 3650.
yes, no, well, yes, in theory. No, the expenditure budget, so these budgets are budgets that I give to finance in December with our guess / evaluation of how much money we're going to spend there.
Right.
So
And it was balanced.
right, so we we did not spend $502. That expenditure is for the summer concerts. It was miscoded.
I see. So it's part of the 17,545 number?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Cynthia, I'm curious. So you're saying the $60 in revenue for Patterson Square events is accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. So the funding that goes in there is generally when somebody reserves the square for $10. So that, you know, we don't get a lot of money there, and
So it's
probably
like
we
6
did the
events or
30.
something?
I'm sorry.
So you're saying it's $10 a pop, so it's like 6 events or, okay.
Exactly. So,
So six,
Alicia flagged this, and so it was just a miscoding error that happened, so we're getting it fixed.
so let's come back to the revenue section. We tried to lighten up the requirements for people to reserve the square. Did anything work? I mean, 6 reservations over the course of a 12-month period isn't very much.
Well, I guess there's a couple things in play there. So we actually just got a request today. So, you know, we were short-staffed for a bit, so we were not promoting the square as much as we probably hoped to. So that's part of it. We don't charge the Ballard or I think we charged them one $10 fee. They did a bunch of summer events on the square. Puppet shows that, you know, I think some folks in this room might have been there. So yeah, we can definitely advertise it more. But that's kind of where we are. We haven't really changed the policies there. What we have done is on a case-by-case basis, after months of discussion about insurance, we have sponsored like the Ballard events under the partnerships insurance, but once we get to more events, it becomes a little bit of an issue. And, you know, we paid for one event this year for a one-time insurance from Wilcox and Reynolds. That's not sustainable unless we budget for it. So that's a question that we need to keep evaluating.
Cynthia, how did we arrive at
At
$10
10?
to rent the square?
So
Yeah.
that was a figure that the that the partnership board was comfortable with. And I distinctly remember this conversation.
Oh, I remember these conversations too.
Yes, and it was a long time ago, you know, probably 10 years ago now. So that's certainly something that could change. But that
It-
was, people wanted it to be accessible, I think, to Tony's point, in terms of it not being a large cost. But it's a
My-
pretty small cost.
I guess my other question would be, I know we only have a few of these events, somewhere on the order of 6 to 10 or whatever, but on average, could you give us like a rough idea of how much staff time goes into each one of these events? Like just between like fielding the phone calls and whatever else has to go on?
I would say anywhere from like 2 to 5 hours. It depends how intricate the request is. You know,
So we're losing money.
oh yeah. I mean, I see where you're going. Yes, we're not making money on reserving the square.
On the other hand, we really wanted to make it easily accessible for student groups, for example, and community organizations. The fact that we charge anything is as much as to make sure that people follow through as it is to cover our costs. And of
Yeah,
course,
but $10 is like a fancy coffee drink at Starbucks nowadays.
I know.
Yeah,
Maybe we
but to
could,
Tony's point, I guess we do get a lot of requests from student groups, hence the insurance issue. That's where we run into an issue, is they are not covered by Yukon insurance for the most part.
Who pays for their insurance? Do they pay for it?
No, we've either had to, you know, it's been on a case-by-case basis. So if it's low key enough, we're just go with it if they're just tabling something. But the last one, the yoga club was there and I was not comfortable not having additional insurance because if they're doing yoga, if something happens, so I went to Wilcox and Reynolds and we got a one-time insurance and we paid for it,
How much did you pay?
about $140.
But Cynthia, is that stuff that the university would pay instead?
No, I spent,
We-
when I said
we've been
months, I
down
was
that
meant
road, right?
years. Yeah, and Ryan got involved in the tail end. So
Huh.
it's not clear cut. And this is probably before COVID, there was a discussion about, from student affairs about providing some sort of insurance, but I think it went nowhere, so.
Is the problem that they're covered on campus but not covered off campus?
There's different tiers of student groups, and so
Yeah.
I don't even think they're covered on campus.
But if they're funded by the student government, which is the major funding source for many of them, they must be covered.
I'd have to go back and, Denise did a full memo on this and I'd
Uh-huh.
have to do some recollection on this and
Okay.
talk to Magdalena because she has it, but it was complicated to say the least. I mean, we had our attorney involved looking at it. We had,
Yeah.
actually, we had Kevin looking at it. We had Bob Sikowski, the UConn's attorney looking at it. And it was just not, coming to any type of conclusion. And I just thought, just to keep this thing moving, we just do it on a case by case basis. And when I need to confer with Ryan, I do.
It does seem to me that we could double the $10 to 20 without causing incredible harm. And it wouldn't give us very much, but it might cover an hour of our time anyway.
Yeah, that's something that the finance committee could recommend to the full board.
Just
Uh,
I'm sorry, just a quick offshoot with regards to reserving that. Do we have like a form that they complete and fill out, sort of kind of attesting to the
Yes.
fact that
We
they're responsible?
We have a whole we have policy, we have checklists, we have a form, we have a whole notebook on it, Mario.
And it had to be passed both by the board and the council. And let me tell you, the council went through it with a fine tooth comb.
Do we know what the community center charges to rent that big community room across from the main desk?
I don't know offhand. I could certainly get that information.
I'm guessing it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like $100 for, I think it's 2 or 3 hours. Does that sound in the right ballpark?
It's in the realm of possible, I guess, rather than hazard a guess. I might be able to answer the question while we're in this meeting. If you give me a second,
Okay.
to go on mute, you guys can continue to talk.
I understand Tony's concern about wanting to make this accessible. But I also think that we should be realistic. If our budget is stretching thin, we shouldn't be subsidizing. I'm not sure we should be subsidizing these other things. We should, maybe be trying to come close to breaking even. So I would be in favor of having a much larger increase.
At least to cover the insurance aspect.
I would
That and
agree with
staff
that
time.
too. Is this something you want to study or do we want to direct Cynthia to explore it in a motion or no?
I would suggest that we ask Cynthia to explore it and also explore raising the cost and also explore the consequences of asking the organizations to pay for 1 day's worth of insurance.
Was that a motion, Tony?
No, somebody could make it as a
Discussion.
motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay, any discussion? Is that okay with you, Cynthia?
Sure.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Hi.
All right. Ryan, are you in favor?
I'm gonna abstain from this one.
Okay. All right, Cynthia.
Okay. So moving on to, speaking of the town square, our balance in the town square account. So I think I've mentioned this before, but we, originally we're gonna take some money out of this for the public spaces, plan that the Yukon Landscape Architecture team did. There was some sort of process that they had to do with procurement at Yukon, and I don't know exactly what happened, but they couldn't use the funding that we allocated for that the board approved. So what we did was allocate a smaller amount to the parking day event that they did Friday, which I think we talked about at the board meeting, so just so Shamim knows. So this was to promote the use of public spaces, which is done in a lot of urban areas. It's an International Parking Day, September 15th, to really show what you could do with space while promoting different forms of transportation, whether it's public transportation, walking, etc. So to make it worth our funding, I wanted this to be more than one day. So they took the display, which is really good, and I can send some pictures. They did a great job of flowers. They put a swing, which we can actually keep since we paid for it. And it was based on pollinators. So we've moved it over to what I call the Chase courtyard. So there's mums there, the swing, and they're going to do some work to promote it during the festival so that people will walk down that way and see it. So that funding, which is about $1,500, will come out of this account. And again, we will be able to keep some of the things that they bought, because I felt that was important because it's a short-term project, but they did a great job, and it was another great partnership with the landscape architecture team.
So it's still there next to Gansett?
It's down the courtyard. So it's in the actual space behind Chase. So if you walk down there, you can see it, and they're gonna, again, have an A-frame out, do some things to promote it on the 30th. And we should be able to keep the most expensive part of it, which was the swing.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We've been wanting a swing downtown for a while.
Right, yeah, it's not quite as sturdy as the Adirondack chairs, but I think it'll work. I've got to figure out with Public Works how to secure it, so assuming it's still there on the 30th. It's a little hidden, so. Let's see. So then Nash Zimmer Transit Services, again, that the income comes from our rent of our space in the Nash Zimmer. And then most of these expenses are from Library Express, office
Cynthia.
supplies.
Sorry to interrupt. The Nash Simmer, we gave up that operation to Laz, and they get the income from that for managing it. When does that agreement expire?
So that's the parking garage, not the Nash Zimmer.
And
I'm
I
sorry,
think
you're right.
It's
I
coming
think
up.
we gotta have a year or two left in that agreement. It's about it's something that the council needs to begin to think about.
So it's 2030.
Oh, I thought it was sooner than that.
No, it's 2030.
It got extended, I guess, at one point.
At one point it did, Tony, you're right. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You know, the irony about that, Steve, is that several of our Republican members who were certain that the parking garage would be a white elephant, to quote them, and that we would be left holding the bag and they would never make any money. And so we turned over all risk associated with the parking garage to the operator. And in exchange, they got all the profit. And now our Republican colleagues are accusing us of having had crummy lawyers and being incompetent in our negotiations because we gave away all that profit.
I'm just wondering if that's not something we need to, maybe that's our additional income in the future.
Oh, there's a thought. Although it's a town building, it's not a partnership building.
No, but I mean, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I get, given that the town funds the partnership, it would be a stream potentially of revenue for which the town could justify an increased contribution to the partnership. So one
Right.
degree of separation.
Interesting thought. Okay, go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, just the last, so there's a couple, and I know these are really hard to read, so, a couple of statements on the parking garage. So as noted in the memo, and I've asked them to do this larger, I'll have to ask again, cleared about 135,000 last year. And just to remind everybody, so
Cynthia, at the bottom of your screen, there is now a black bar that has a plus sign in it. Can you click on the plus sign?
this,
No, to your left, in the center. There we go. See it? The black bar?
I see my mouse, is that what you mean, or here?
Drop
Next
your
to
mouse.
The
Drop your mouse.
175%.
Oh,
It's gone now. You have to get your mouse closer to the bottom. There we go.
down here.
Maybe you don't see this black bar at the bottom of your screen that we see.
Well, I have all of you at the bottom of my screen, so I'm trying to.
Oh, that may be
I've
the
taken you
problem.
off now, so I see
So
the
you-
175.
Hit the plus.
Hit the plus sign. Well, almost legible. Try again. There we
You
go.
want it goes from, yeah.
All right, still can't read it, but so maybe you can read it. So tell us about it.
So what I was saying was, I mean, I think the key point is that they brought in about $135,000 this year is what they cleared over expenses. What I was going to mention again is that just as a reminder that regardless of how much the parking garage makes or doesn't make, every year they put in a certain amount of funding, which is probably up to, I think it's up to about 58,000 a year, into capital for the garage. So the various capital expenditures, whether it's the new gates or whatever it might be, that has to be approved by the finance department at any request from Laz, or something that Alan Corson and his team, excuse me, determine are a needed capital expenditure.
And I would, I guess, just also point out, although I'm sure everybody here is aware of this or would be thinking about it anyway, but it's fair to say that, in terms of what it would cost under different arrangements, say for the town to operate the garage, our operating cost structure would clearly vary from a private entity doing it. So that can kind of, doesn't mean it's going to go up or down. It just would be different. And so it's definitely more complicated exercise than just looking at this and saying, okay, this is what the town revenue or net income would be if the town operated it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that's pretty much it on the financials.
So what we need is a recommendation from this committee to the board to accept the financials from the last year. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Moved by Shamim. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Ryan. Any comments on it? Any reason not to accept them? I think maybe although doesn't need to be part of the motion, I think one of the things we've done is ask Cynthia to look into increasing the cost, and also, no, that's all. So, all those in favor of the motion to recommend this to the board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next.
So next was just an update on potential job classification survey and salary schedule. So the executive committee met, I think, 2 weeks ago. And this is follow-up from some of the work that the interim HR director had done for me based on conversations that I think came out of this committee way back when about supporting staff and salaries, et cetera, et cetera. And so he did a salary schedule for me, and for the current fiscal year, we based the salary increases on that schedule, but we have not adopted a salary schedule. So at the executive committee meeting, Ryan recommended that we look into potentially, before we do that, look into tagging on to the town's compensation study. So I reached out to Maria Capriola, Director of Shared Services Administration, waiting to hear back from Maria on that. But I think the goal would be to look at the current positions, evaluate them, and then go from there in terms of whether, what the kind of going rate is on salaries, and look at that vis-a-vis a potential salary schedule, which obviously we don't have to do. We never have done it that way, but it's a possibility.
Okay, so we'll wait for a report on that.
Yes. When I hear
No
back from
action,
Maria. No
no
action.
action needed.
Yep.
I would just add a quick note on that. I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with holding up Maria's discussions with Cynthia, but we did, when we put out our request for proposals for the classification compensation study, the proposals we received were all considerably north of what we had included in the town's capital budget for the project. So we are kind of revisiting our options, trying to figure out whether the proposed path will be going back to the council requesting more funds to allow us to do the original broader scope of work, or if we're going to narrow the scope, or narrow our focus to a subset of the bargaining units. For instance, we could start with non-union or particular bargaining units. So anyway, just want to let folks know that we are kind of revisiting that given where those bids came in.
Thanks. All right, update on our strategic plan.
Yeah, so Kyle Muncy, our board president, and Sean Vasington, who's kind of leading up the strategic plan, we're going to get together and really delve into where we are with the strategic plan as far as tier 1, are we almost done with those? Tier 2, do some of those still make sense? So we've been giving it to the board and the working groups have been meeting, but I think we really need to evaluate where we are. And then downtown stores, just a couple of updates. I think everybody knows about Haven Hot Chicken, Square Peg, and Pliables. So I actually I walked by the future Haven Hot Chicken, and the contractor was in there. They're hoping to be in by mid-October, as is Square Peg. Square Peg will have their food truck at the festival, so we're really excited about that because we ended up having a vacancy, so they were able to come in because they just contacted us last week. Pliables is looking at hopefully November, and then there will be a second Huskies in the former Grill 86 space, and I met with the owners there last week. We had a good conversation. We'll be having them meet with Kathleen to start, their marketing. They are looking for their space to be open for lunch and dinner. And then stay open late, similar to what they're doing right now, on North Eagleville. So, yeah, there's just some exciting things happening. I think there's another one that's coming in down in what I call the June Krish courtyard. But that has not been finalized yet. So there's definitely some activity, some excitement going on.
How about office space? Is anybody filling up the big vacant office space that's there?
So, when I talked to the owners, Oak Tree Capital, of the CHA space, I think that's what you're referring to,
Yeah.
Tony. So I know that he's mentioned workspace in there. And, I've sent him the whole memo that Josh Stern did for us. We went and visited one in West Hartford. But nothing's come of that yet. So there's definitely some interest from them. Apparently, they want to keep it as office space if they can. It is it's a nice space there, has a kitchen, has kind of a conference area. And then, cubicles and things like that. I think they left some of their stuff there.
Well, that's a huge space. It would be very nice to have it filled. It would also bring people into the downtown.
Yes,
If there were 30 people working there, it would provide foot traffic, if nothing else.
yeah. He has all our research, which was pretty extensive. I have to give Josh a lot of credit for that.
Okay. So that's that. We have two future agenda items, a sustainable financial plan, and the town investment policy. Is there anything anybody would like to add to a future agenda for this committee? All right, we're a little early to talk about the last parking garage. That'll take another 7 years. So hopefully we'll all still be here on this committee at that point. So we'll see what happens. The next item on the agenda is a motion to adjourn, unless somebody has something more to say.
So moved.
Moved by Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mario. Moved and second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
I will see you at the festival.
Yep.
Forward to it.
How's the festival going?
It's going. Can I have a booth? That closed a couple of weeks ago. It's all right. It's good. It's good.